Hey guys, I'm finally back to do my next character review. Yeah, I know, it has been a while. um, my friend has been really busy with his school and everything, and I've been really busy with my new job. Trying to adjust to that. So we decided to put our character reviews on hold for a little while. But, we're finally back doing our character reviews. Um, this time we're doing Odette from the Swan Princess. That, by the way, is a request from Kristen Fan 10109, I believe is her username, and Tiana from The Princess and the Frog. My friend just did his Odette review yesterday, and I'm here today to do my Tiana review. And the complaints that I usually hear about Tiana are she's stupid, she's boring, her movie is lame, boring, and unoriginal. They didn't take the time period into account when they made her because back when the movie was supposed to take place, women and African Americans weren't allowed to own property and that sort of thing. Her design is racist. She's mean to Naveen and Ray. She's egocentric. And she was only made so that Disney could have a black princess. Yep, I've heard all of those somewhere. Starting with the whole she's stupid. Generally, when people are arguing that, they put up the argument that she was stupid to, kiss a talking frog who promised her money and that sort of thing. And yeah, that's an arguably stupid decision that she made, but, making a stupid decision does not make a stupid person. By that standard, everyone in the universe is stupid. I mean, name a hero or heroine, and no, I'm not talking about, like, Snow White or Snow White's prince or Prince Charming, who barely has any screen time. Name a hero or heroine with any amount of screen time that doesn't make some kind of arguably stupid decision at some point. I mean, you've got, like, Belle who goes into the West Wing even though Beast told her not to. Ariel who makes a deal with the obviously evil Sea Witch. Merida who makes a deal with a witch to change her mother. So, while I'm not going to deny, in fact I've used it as an example before, I'm not going to deny that kissing a frog was kissing a talking frog who promised her money was probably not the brightest move on Tiana's part. I don't really see how that makes her a stupid character. To me, that makes her more human than stupid. I mean, if you want to see if you want to see a really stupid character, take a look at some of the current Disney Channel shows, which, thank goodness, are going off the air soon, like, Jessie and Austin and Ally and those kind of shows. to me, the characters in those are a lot dumber than Tiana is. She's boring. Boring is a very subjective term. I suppose I can see why some people might find her boring. I mean, she's definitely a workaholic and isn't much into fun. So I can see why some people might find her boring, but I never saw her that way. I mean, she goes on some fun adventures through the movie. Um, and that sort of thing. So, I mean, I can see that argument with her more than I can with some other Disney characters. Like, people arguing that Scrooge is a boring character. Uh, or, and that sort of thing, or, and, other characters that I've heard. So, I mean, I can get that with her a little bit more than than some other characters that I've reviewed. But, she's never seemed boring to me before. And like I said, it's a very subjective. Being boring is a very subjective idea. It's very much in the eye of the beholder. So, I'm not going to try to convince you that, that she isn't. Um, her movie is very lame and boring and unoriginal. What in the frick does that have to do with Tiana's character? Seriously, what? As I've mentioned in my reviews of the sequel characters, just because excuse me. Just because you dislike a show or a movie, that's no reason to dislike all of the characters in it. I mean, that's a really lame reason to to dislike a character. Personally, I don't see The Princess and the Frog as being bland and boring and unoriginal. I mean, any more than I do any of the other Disney princess movies. I mean, it's not the most original storyline in the world. None of the Disney princess movies are. They've all got pretty much the same storyline, more or less. Now, princess... The princess wants more. The villain what wants something. The prince and princess fall in love and defeat the villain. That sort of thing. They've all got pretty much the same storyline, more or less. So, I mean, in that sense, all of the princess movies are somewhat alike. Yeah, when you get down to, like, the very bare bones of their storyline, but, But still, I mean, that's still a very weak reason to dislike Tiana based on uh, how much you like her movie. I mean, I'm not. I dislike the movie Tangled. I think that it's. I think that the humor is very forced. I don't like the modern. I don't like the modern stuff in it. The modern references. I think that a lot of the characters, especially the hero in it, are very poorly done. But that doesn't mean I hate all of the characters in it. I think that Gothel is actually a very good villain. And I'm I'm not fond of the movie Frozen. Um, I think it kind of suffers the same way that Tangled does. But I do like some of the characters in it, like Ilsa and Olaf and Kristoff. I think that they by themselves are very good characters. They just don't really work that well in the weak story of Frozen. So find a better reason to dislike her than you don't like her movie. Definitely. Um, they didn't take into account the time period when they made her because back when the movie was supposed to take place, women and African Americans had very little rights and couldn't own property and that sort of thing. Well, first of all, I'd like to point out that very few people take into account the time period that Disney movies were made in, since in many of my reviews, people seem to dislike characters like Snow White and Cinderella for not standing up for themselves and leaving their homes and that sort of thing, not taking into account the fact that 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 women had no rights back in their time period. So why are you suddenly taking into account Tiana's time period? That's my question. Why do you take into account the time period of some characters but not others? Huh? Another thing that I need to mention is any of the more modern Disney heroes and heroines, they didn't take into account a lot of things about their time period. Not just Tiana, but a lot of the more modern Disney heroes and heroines, they didn't. I mean, look at Mulan. Women had no rights back in ancient China, but even after she reveals herself to be a woman, and has snuck into the army and disgraced the army, they're still willing to listen to her and let her lead them to save the day. That wouldn't have happened if it had taken place back in ancient China. As soon as she revealed herself to be a woman, she would have been I'm serious. um, I mean, if you look at most of the more modern Disney movies, um, if you look at Pocahontas, especially in her sequel, and yes, I know everybody hates the sequel, but if you look at the sequel to Pocahontas, where she goes to England to make peace, and gets up in front of the king um, and speaks speaks up for her people and tries to make peace. That wouldn't have happened back then. And yes, even in the original movie, uh, she did a lot of things that probably wouldn't have that they probably wouldn't have put up with. So you have to remember that in the more recent Disney films, the the people at Disney don't take into consideration the time period that characters were made in, that characters were supposed to take place in, and have a little bit of artistic license and for the benefit of the plot of the movie. And yeah, I know. I've always said in my previous reviews that you need to take into consideration um, the time period that the movie was made in and the time period that it was supposed to take place in. But mm, it also depends on when the Disney movie itself was made. Her design is racist. How? Seriously, how? I mean, to me, she... Sorry, but to me, she looks like a beautiful, realistic African-American woman. I mean, she's my most beautiful animated heroine. Um, what were they supposed to do with her design to make it not be racist? I mean, I don't understand this one at all. And forgive me if I sound racist, but I mean, that she their intent was to make her look beautiful and look African American. So and have features of an African American person. So I don't really see what's so racist about it. I'm not going to get too deep into this one because I don't want to say anything that might come across as racist. But I honestly don't get. I honestly don't get it, and um, if anybody could tell me what about her design is racist, I mean, does she look too African American? Does she look not African American enough? Um, I I fail to see what's racist at all about about the design. Sorry. Sorry. If somebody could explain it to me, I might be able uh, to talk about it a little bit more. But I don't get it, and I'm not gonna get too deep into it because I don't want to say something racist. Um, she's mean to Naveen and Ray. Generally the arguments that I hear when people say that are, that like, she yelled at Ray and told him that, Evangeline didn't exist, and, that she was going to leave Naveen to get eaten by the alligators if he didn't agree to give her money, and that she thought about leaving him and making a deal with Dr. Facilier, I think is how you pronounce his name. And also I think that she's too bossy to Naveen. I've heard a bunch of arguments about that. Okay. Even though I like Naveen as a character, he started off as being a jerk to her. So, how was she too bossy to him? She was frustrated with him, and, said some things that he really needed to hear about himself. I mean, she may not have said them in the most polite way, but I can't really blame her for being frustrated with him, and I can't really blame her for being frustrated with him and, wanting to, wanting him to stop, acting like a spoiled prince. I mean, yeah, I mean, I can think about it from his perspective and know that he didn't really, he was pampered his whole life and never really learned about the cold, cruel world, but, if you were, think about it, if you were trapped, if you were lost outside and were dealing with somebody like him, you would be pretty frustrated too, wouldn't you? You're you're trying to make dinner and he basically wants you to he basically wants to treat you like a servant girl or something. That would be pretty frustrating. So she may not have been, she may not have said it in the nicest way possible, but I can't really blame her for that, because heck, I probably would have exploded at him. As far as her leaving him for the alligators, I can kind of understand that. I probably would have done it a little bit differently if I were Disney. But I always kind of got the impression that even if he hadn't agreed, she's not so heartless that she would have left him. I can kind of understand that. I can kind of see where that makes her look a little too mean. But I always kind of got the impression that even if he hadn't agreed to give her the money, she would have taken pity on him and helped him up anyway. Yeah, I probably would have done it a little bit differently if I was Disney, so that she wouldn't have looked like she she would only help him if he would give her money, because that's a little out there for a Disney princess. Um, the part where she's about to, where she's considering making a deal with Dr. Facilier, I think. You have to take into consideration that she saw Lawrence as Naveen on the float and thought that Naveen had betrayed her, and somehow managed to become human without her. So she pretty much, so she wasn't thinking about him at all. She thought that he had already. She thought he already had his happily ever after, and had betrayed her and dumped her. So, she was she was thinking that the witch doctor, Dr. Facilier, was probably the only way that she was going to get any money for her restaurant at this point. And as far as yelling at Ray and saying that Evangeline didn't exist, well, she had just seen what she thought was Naveen having betrayed her, and was angry and frustrated, and had completely and had a broken heart, and was sure that her fairy tale dream was never going to come true, and so she was taking her anger out on him, which wasn't the nicest thing to do, but, I mean, if that had happened to you, you would want to yell at somebody. And, yeah, I probably would have had her apologizing to him, but, I mean, he died before she really had a chance to. So, I don't really think that she's mean to them. I think that she's no meaner than any other character. I think that she's a flawed human being. Excuse me. A flawed, relatable human being, and that's about all I have to say about it. She's egocentric. No more egocentric than the average Disney hero or heroine. I mean, yeah, she's determined to open her restaurant and everything, but I don't really see how having a goal and focusing on that makes her an egocentric person. I mean, she risks her life for her friends a couple of times. So, she's not really given the opportunity to do it a lot of times. Um, I'd say that she's more focused on a goal than she is egocentric. Um, but I don't really see that that makes her any more egocentric than the average Disney hero or heroine and most of them are who are focused on a goal too. I mean, I don't really see that that's any more egocentric than Ariel, who's focused on the goal of becoming human and marrying Eric. I don't really see how that's any more egocentric than, uh, I don't know, uh, uh, Kiara from Lion King 2, who's, pretty much focused on the goal of being able to become independent and, uh, uh, free from, having her father constantly watch her and babysat from Timon and babysat by Timon and Pumbaa, and then and that sort of thing. Um, to me, she's about as egocentric as the average modern Disney hero and heroine. Yeah, she has a goal of opening a restaurant and she doesn't have time for fun and yada yada yada, but, I mean, it's not like, the kids from Jessie, whose only goal is to have a ton of money and spend it on themselves and get more money and spend it on themselves and that sort of thing. Or even as egocentric as Naveen was before he reformed. Whose only goal was to marry wealthy and have women swooning over him. She was only made so that Disney could have a black princess. Okay. That's kind of like, disliking a character strictly because they're the token chick or something like that. I'm not denying that there are token, characters, both gender and, racial token characters that are done poorly. But what's wrong with Disney wanting to represent all the racial characters? I mean, they had a bunch of white princesses, they had an Asian princess, they had a Native American princess. So what's wrong with the fact that they wanted an African American princess? I don't really see anything wrong with that. I mean, yeah, I don't decide that I'm going to like a character just based off of their gender or race. They have to be a well-done character with a good personality for me to like them. But, I don't really see that Tiana isn't isn't a well-done character. I think that Tiana is a well-done character with a good personality, even though she is the token African-American Disney princess. I mean, I have seen shows where they just throw in a token racial minority for the sake of having one, and I'm not denying that that can be racist and a bad representation of a race and poorly done, but I don't really see why why the fact that that Disney wanted an African American princess is a reason to dislike Tiana, since she's a really well done character and has a lot of depth to her. I mean, it's not like they just threw her in there without any thought. Sorry, you know me and laughing at dumb complaints. Anyway, pick a better reason than that to dislike her. Because that's definitely a weak reason. I don't have anything against Disney wanting to represent all races with their princesses, as long as it's done well and they're not just throwing them out there without giving them any depth to their personality. That's about all I have to say about it. Sorry, my throat's getting dry. That's why I'm not talking very well. Personally, I absolutely love Tiana. She's my second favorite Disney princess after Snow White, and my fourth favorite Disney heroine after Minnie and Webby, who tie for my first, Miss Piggy and Snow White. I think that she's got a lot of depth to her personality. She's definitely a different take on the average Disney princess heroine. And I love how hardworking and responsible she is. I wouldn't say that she's an unconventional heroine, but she's different from the average modern Disney heroine in that she's a lot more hardworking and responsible as opposed to the average modern one like Ariel and Merida and Jasmine and those kind of things that are the young, rebellious, adventure-seeking heroines. And I generally prefer the more mature, responsible heroines, which she definitely is. Anyway, that's why I personally like her. The The link to my friend's video will be in the description box below. Please like and subscribe and subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks, see you next time.